This possibility to involve the community and the implementer in the design choice and to have a discussion with them. What goal should we pursue? What the community thinks about it? What the community wants to achieve? Give them enough power early enough in the process so that at the end of the day, it's not our update of the protocol, but it's the community update actually.
Working in cycles and working really in a, I would say, in a very agile way. We're trying to work in a very agile way, and so we are, and also to communicate a lot with stakeholders. So one of the things we have been doing so far, we had one of the main artifacts, and I would say wasn't only prototypes and numbers and models. I think one of the main artifacts we got out of our first cycle working on Peras was this technical report that we built with the team. And we shared across the stakeholders that were the people that were interested in Peras. Initially internally within the committee, because Peras was more an internal process. But I think and this technical report really is about aggregating together the various findings. Really, we want to get into that. We mentioned that software readiness level process thing. And we really want to be precise also about what did we find, what did we do, what did we find, and what do we need to do next, and what are the other questions, the other areas that needs to be investigated. And just to give an example, I think one of the outcome of the first technical reports and the first round of, I would say the first 2 or 3 months we worked on Peras was we knew that there were, one of the gray area that we had to investigate was the question around the certificates and the votes. And what really is a Peras vote? What really is a Peras certificate? Because this is obvious, is needed, this is a critical ingredient on the system. And it's the way we build it, the size, the CPU, all these things has to be indicated. So that's really one of the outcome that we built in the technical report, and also to inform downstream to potential implementers what they would need to watch out for. And I think that's really the one way we have to communicate with the results of this innovation stream.
I guess one critical point here is also to kind of explain why or where the benefits are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's,
so it's and to me, you can always say, well, fast confirmation is fine, is good. Right? It's good to have. So why not? It's also good to explain why. In particular, if you follow this kind of this settlement, this longest chain protocols, then you can say, okay, a transaction is settled if so the more blocks are built on top of it, the less likely it gets reverted, right? So if you buy something expensive, right? So the person selling you the goods should rather wait a bit longer, and if it's some small thing, you can maybe it's fine if it enters the mempool or the first block. So it's kind of a user-dependent risk assessment, right? But if now we look at the broader ecosystem and we look at partner chains or bridges between Cardano and other systems, like this other system has to say when is something final. So it's not a single user selling an expensive car or some sweets which are not so expensive. It's more like then you decide for an entire other ecosystem when shall it think that something on Cardano is settled. So and for this, it's very important that we offer faster confirmation. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you get it wrong, it might be catastrophic for the other ecosystem, right? Like if there is something that you're supposed to lock up on the Cardano side, or even burn or whatever, and then you start doing stuff on the other side, and it gets reverted, then the other side has a problem, right?
And I think it's interesting that through this process of innovation, because we are trying to be very upfront about what we're doing and trying to work in the most transparent way. I think it's interesting to see that people from the partner ecosystem, for example, they come to us and say, what are the numbers we can expect, right? And now you have to give an answer. You have to, and so this forces us with both research and innovation to try to, what are the numbers?
Exactly, and they should be they must be accurate, or I mean, you don't know how the production grade system then eventually will look like, but you need to be at the state where you know you have high confidence that the numbers you report, that's kind of this, in this order things will settle in the end. It's like you cannot, otherwise, you build on false promises. So we have to make everything in our
Power.
Everything in our power, thanks to make sure we report numbers that later crucial decision can be.
But it's something that we have with this innovation process that we struggled to have in the past. When you go straight to the implementation and try to just go from idea to build the code that will be in production, you skip all this phase that allows you to have confidence in any figures, and that allows you to provide feedback more quickly than if you try to reach the final product directly. So having this iteration cycle in innovation allows us to provide more feedback to the users, to tell them where we are, what we can do, what are the options on the table as well. It's something we didn't have the opportunity to benefit enough in Peras, but it's something that we also want to cover in the future. It's this possibility to involve the community and the implementer in the design choice, and to have a discussion with them by sharing the prototype that we have, sharing our concern and saying, okay, this is where we are at the moment. We have different options on the table. This is a trade-off we have thought about for these different trade-offs. What goal should we pursue? What the community thinks about it? What the community wants to achieve? So doing the things this way is also a way to involve the community and to give them enough power early enough in the process, so that at the end of the day, it's not our update of the protocol, but it's the community update, actually.
Yeah. I think it's important to mention two very practical things on this front. Now that Intersect is being set up, I mean, we already have this CIP process, which has been up for quite a while in the kernel community, and which really led to some interesting innovations happening. But sometimes what we saw in the past was kind of sometimes happening is you get a CIP up, and this CIP is really research grade. So something which is very theoretical, which getting straight out of research to a CIP is something very hard, because there is, I mean, the chances that somebody can pick that up, or someone random can pick that up and start working on it and implementing are basically zero, right? Because of this whole need for translation that I'm this kind of a pet peeve of mine, but I realized already that at the end, one of the outcome that we really hope we'll reach sooner than later is really to be able in the position to get a CIP out, submit a CIP for Peras that will be unambiguous and precise enough, and contains all those numbers you mentioned, to say, okay, now now if you want to implement Peras, anybody could implement Peras in any language, any node, because you really have a specification, and the specification is not theoretical. It's backed by a prototype and a model of the network and numbers and all these kind of things that we provide, and getting to that point is really something that is dear to my heart, because that will foster the possibility for the community at large to start engaging with this thing in a structured way, rather than
and also, we are then also committing, right? You see the trace, what led to what we say.
How you go from
then you can go and challenge. I mean, it's not that we can then change things and say, oh, we didn't intend to do, we didn't mean this or that. We are kind of committing.
Yeah, exactly.
And here are our findings. And now you can take a decision based on this, and then we stand by this.
And you can have meaningful discussions.
Yeah, exactly. There's a common ground.
And if we really get to the point, I think one of the outcome of Peras that I would really like to get out is having some kind of actionable model that people could play with, and start playing with the parameters of the model. Say, okay, what would be good, and then they could critique that model. Say, oh, but that doesn't make sense, because I mean, for whatever reason, if you put that parameter too large, then now you reap out all the benefits, or the resources consumption will be too high, or whatever. But putting in the hands of the community at large a tool that they can use to really assess what's the value. Because if we give everyone the paper, if you don't really have the, I mean, I would say it's like reading, I don't know, it's like reading Heidegger if you don't have any training in philosophy. You can read it. Anybody can read Heidegger, but understanding Heidegger is really out of reach of, I mean, personally I can't, but...
It's something that is quite important with this SIP phase. Having a more detailed SIP doesn't mean that people will have less power to have an impact on it. It's actually the opposite.
Exactly.
Because the more detail you have in the SIP, the easier it is to discuss these details and to have an impact on them. If you have a SIP that is very vague, you won't be able to have, as you said, a meaningful discussion about it because, well, it's vague enough so that everybody can agree on the content because the content doesn't provide any details that you have to argue about.
Exactly, and then the discussions often evolve about how you understand versus how I understand. It's like is there a problem or not?
Yeah.
Right. Maybe there is.
And
just
with this level of detail, we will be able to onboard the community within discussions that will have a real impact. Because, as you said as well, as we have something that is very detailed, it will be quite straightforward to implement. Well, straightforward is probably a strong word, but at least you
famous last words.
Yeah, but at least you have enough knowledge about what you need to implement.
Yeah, there's a reference, a spec you have to satisfy, right? That's kind of the call. Is then you have to implement this, and this is a spec. So whatever you do should comply with. Yeah. And the proposal, and then you get the benefits that are promised.
And to really to kind of get a bit meta about all this, one of the things we are trying to do here within Peras as a kind of spearheading the effort is really to engage with not the whole community, but a few. I mean, the people who are most active in the community to try to get from them what would be the most useful from them. Really, I think we are starting that process, and we are getting interesting answers. People would be willing to get some formal specification, but if they also want diagrams. They also want to get an understanding, have examples, concrete things where they can follow, because that helps them. And the worst thing, and something that is sometimes hard, is reverse engineering complicated code. And so if we put that thing on the top, that would be very helpful. And also, as you mentioned, in terms of one of the things we're trying also to produce is some kind of conformance testing. I think that's one of the things that we also want to get out of a formal specification model and say, okay, if you want, anybody could write an implementation, and now you even have a conformance test suite that will help you drive your code.